Okay, so it's either just after sundown or just before sunup, but I wanted to exploit the opportunity. So I want to talk about a philosophy of working out, and the prevailing mythology is body parts: arm day, back day, leg day. That's been around since probably the 50s, and my father was a bodybuilder. That's He learned that in the 50s. So maybe before that. The problem with it is that you need to be a kinesiologist or a physiologist to make sure that you hit all the different muscles appropriately. Otherwise, you're highly misproportioned. Now, women tend to notice these things more than men do. The guy with the giant arms, but no shoulders, no forearm, no neck, no core, but he's got these giant arms. And the poor guy, he wants to be desirable to women. But women, might have an eye to the aesthetics of it. And misproportion is not a good thing, in my very humble opinion. Uh, so there's another approach, not arm day, back day, leg day. The reason that was developed is the idea that you were supposed to work so hard, you really blasted your arms. They needed a day off, but you didn't want to take a day off. So instead of working, you worked some other body part, and that way you had rest and you had work at the same time. Now, the approach that I take is not body parts, it's functions. Pushing and pulling. For upper body, pushing and pulling. It's a very easy example. So there are three athletic body parts, three parts to the athletic body: upper body, middle body, lower body. Upper body does two things. Middle body does two things. Lower body does two things. Well, what is the upper body? It's arms and shoulders, the shoulder girdle. What is the middle body? It's your core, your trunk, it's your spine, from tailbone to the top of your neck. And lower body is your pelvis, your hips, your legs. Those three parts. Now, I've described the entire skeleton, everything except your skull, and you exercise that in some other way. So upper body does two things. It pushes and it pulls, and that's it. That's what it does. That's everything that it does, because a muscle can only contract and relax. And then there are muscles that work in opposition to that, and they pull in their direction, and then relax. So the idea is the biceps pulls the arm in, and the triceps pushes the hand away. Think of it as hand. And together they make that pushing and pulling function. And it's not one or the other, they're working together. But everything that you see that the upper body, arms and shoulders, is doing, it's a push or a pull. Middle body does two things. It bends, like from there, and it twists. And it's not quite the same thing, but it's the spine twisting. That's what it does. And it can't do anything else. But all those dancey, snaky movements that people do, it's one of those two things. Or rather, it's a combination. Lower body, it bounds, it does lunges, it does forward movements, and it does upward jumps. And they're kind of the same thing, sort of, but just for the ease of remembering it, through things in the upper body, two things in the middle body, two things in the lower body. Now, you always want to complement, to complete the movement. Whatever you push, you should pull. So if I'm going to do the bench press, say, or overhead press, you need to do at some point. That doesn't have to be that same time, same day, but it needs to be a similar. You're similarly serious about getting that job done too. You can't just be the biceps curl guy. You're gonna have gigantic arms. Well, the front of your arm, the biceps will be big. Maybe the triceps not. And now you've got to do push downs as well. It's an unnatural. There's nothing wrong necessarily with that, but you've got to make sure that you're developing these functions equally. If for no other reason, and put the aesthetics aside, it's injury. if you're very, very imbalanced, you're just looking for an injury. So lunges and squats and the variations, the various variations of those, you're hitting what the lower body does. And I'm keeping it very simple because there's calves and there's tibialis and there's just any number of that part, but it is lower body. When I was doing serious running, my tibialis, the front part, the shin muscle, just got much bigger doing sprints and hill runs. And it just got really, really much, much bigger. So who knew, right? Instead of just that shin bone, the blade of that bone, it filled in with muscle. I'm a lean, lanky guy, but, I'm capable of filling with muscle. So middle body, when you exercise that, everybody wants abs. They want their beach body as if it's always going to be summer. Fine, do whatever you have to do. But if you're going to be doing crunches, and in the old days, they invented crunches. There didn't used to be crunches. It was sit-ups, not entirely dissimilar, but a different contraction. If you're going to be doing abs, you've got to do the obliques. You've got to do something like side bends to hit those, and you have to do the spinal erectors, the back. That's your core. It's not your abs. It's the whole girdle of muscle. And I have noticed and am aware of the fact that core starts at your knees, the back of your knees, and it's up your hamstrings, and it goes up to your shoulder blades. So that's core. Now, upper body, it pushes in 3 ways, and it pulls in 3 ways. The downward pull, chin up, the inward pull, row, the upward pull, high pull, the upward push, overhead press, the outward push, bench press, push up, the downward push, dips. Now, the outward push, the push up of the bench press, and the downward, hands out, hands down, the bench press, say, and the dips, very similar, very similar. You don't have to do them both. If you've got all the energy in the world or time or highly motivated, you can do it if you recover properly. But the overhead push, unique. The only way you hit those muscles in that way is by doing overhead presses. So do overhead presses and or the outward push or the downward push. Those are pushes. Now, same pattern with the pull. The downward pull, chin up, and the inward pull, row, downward and inward, very similar. The upward pull, different. And now you can look at this and you'll see that it's true. So in other words, the upward pull and the upward push are very similar. They're similar in that they're unique. The other 2 pushes and 2 pulls, they're very similar to each other, if you get what I'm saying. So any competent workout, upper body, you need to have the pushes and pulls in a balanced proportion. And then lower body stuff can't, every day is leg day, is what they say. And they're not wrong. And then one of the things that I've said is that you are only as strong as your core. And the example I give is, what is an octopus? What's an octopus? What's an octopus? An octopus is an octopus. It's not 8 tentacles. It's the core that is the octopus. And then it has tentacles. You can lose its tentacles and be an octopus, a septopus, but it's an octopus. That's what an athlete is. An athlete is not his or her arms or limbs, because the strong part is the core. And the example is, it's weak, stronger, 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 and this is where you need your strength. The further you go, the stronger it has to be. And you can see that because you've got a crane or a derrick and it's overloaded at the far end with the bad leverage, it's going to break. You need to have the weakest, the smallest load farther away. The inner part needs to be sturdier. And when you work out properly, those things take care of themselves, using this a very broad philosophical approach to it. The idea of 3 pushes and 3 pulls that complement one another. And the idea that you've got to hit not just the front part of your core, but the 2 sides and the back of your core. And then sensible, safe lower body work, all kinds of ways of hitting that. But again, that's for another time. So that's all for now. It's a good morning or good night, depending on what time of the day it is.